Hello and welcome to the SBK World Cup Podcast, episode 3. I'm joined once again by the former England and Manchester United legend Gary Pallister and the former England and Manchester United legend Lee Sharpe, and also, of course, our wrestling expert Tom Williams. We're going to be talking about, of course, the games that have happened since we last spoke and looking ahead to some of the big games coming up on the weekend. But before we do that, just to remind you that if you're looking for the best odds on the World Cup, check out SBK. You can get £30 in free bets by depositing, signing up and betting £10. 18 plus only, of course. Please gamble responsibly. BeGambleAware.org. So listen, gents, we're going to start out by looking at a few shock results in the first round. Let's start with the game from Wednesday, Germany against Japan. A stunning victory for the Japanese, a come-from-behind win in the second half. Tom, I'm going to throw it to you first. This was an amazing win for the Japanese team and a big disappointment for Germany. But actually, it has to be said, Germany had a lot of opportunities in this game, despite the quality of Japan in the second half. What was your read on the match?
Yeah, it was a really strange game, a really entertaining game, and yeah, a very open game as well. I mean, if you look at the stats, the number of opportunities that Germany created, they should have run away with it. Obviously, Ilkay Gundogan puts them ahead from the penalty spot, and although Japan were getting chances on the counter-attack, you never really felt that Germany weren't in control of the game. And the feeling I had was that at some point they were going to put one of these chances away. I mean, they were creating so many. Jamal Musiala almost scored an absolute all-time World Cup worldie, dancing past a few challenges and then firing them over the bar. And Japan looked there for the taking, but Germany didn't take those chances, and that's been a bit of an issue for them in recent times. And Japan sort of hung in there, and even prior to the Japanese equaliser and then the winner, they had been getting opportunities. That the way that Germany played does leave an awful lot of space, and I think if you're courageous enough to attack Germany like Japan were, you can get your rewards, and that's obviously exactly what happened.
Yeah, you talk about the kind of bravery in the second half of Japan. I mean, they really went at Germany, and it has to be said that the substitutions from Hajime Moriyasu made a huge difference to the second half. And of course, the winner coming from Takuma Asano, a man who actually played at Arsenal. I say played, he was signed by Arsenal, but sent on loan, I think, for 3 seasons. I don't think he actually even got a work permit, so couldn't play for the club, but was playing in Germany and of course, still playing in Germany. So up against a man he knew well in Manuel Neuer, a fantastic goal. Gary, if you saw this one, I mean, that finish from Asano was superb. What a way to win that game.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still bad defending, isn't it? It's shocking.
There's the centre back.
Dear Lord, I mean that's schoolboy errors. But listen, the gulf now between. I mean, who would have thought that was possible 20 years ago? That Japan could even compete at any kind of level with Germany, that the powerhouse of European football. Just goes to show how football around the world is taking off, and obviously the investment in the football in countries like Japan as well, for them to be competitive at World Cup. I think it's tremendous for the game. But listen, Germany still aren't a finished article. We saw that in the Euros a couple of years back, or 18 months ago, whatever it was. They've still got a few problems to iron out, but all the credit goes to Japan. The celebrations were great. It's what we want to see in the World Cup, and that really blows that group wide open, doesn't it? Now?
Yeah, definitely. Japan were fantastic, I thought, in that second half, and looked like a very technically strong side, and of course now in a very strong position to reach the last 16. Not least because Germany's next game is against Spain. And Spain absolutely thrashed Costa Rica 7-0, 6 goal scorers in this one. Ferran Torres with a brace. And I think it's fair to say Spain looking pretty scary again, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we mentioned this on Tuesday's pod. They had a really impressive Euro 2020. Made it to the semi-finals, took Italy all the way to penalties. And I think one of the funny things with this Spain team is that you look at the team sheet, you look at the names on paper, and they're not as impressive as they were, 10 years ago during that incredible period of dominance when you had, Xavi and Iniesta pulling the strings. But that philosophy, that football philosophy, is still very much in place. And even players who aren't necessarily regular starters at their clubs, people like Ferran Torres, Marcos Asensio are still capable of stepping up and producing the goods when needed. I think it was a reminder of what a dangerous side Spain are. Perhaps didn't get mentioned all that much in the sort of pre-tournament talk when people were picking out their favourites. But yeah, it sent out a real statement with that victory. Some really quality goals as well, and there is this sort of blend of old and new. You look at the midfield, the old man Sergio Busquets sitting there as the number 6, and he's got Gavi and Pedri alongside him, and Gavi who took that goal that he scored beautifully on the volley. I think we're going to have to start taking Spain seriously.
I was just going to say, the funny thing for me was the build-up to the game was like Spain's Achilles heel is they can't score goals.
It's this thing about not having a number 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was stunning. 18 years and 110 days. Gavi is the youngest goal scorer in a World Cup since Pele in 1958. That's an Opta stat. So, I mean, we knew this guy was a special talent, but he's really announcing himself on the world stage there.
It's a shame he wears the number 9 shirt, though. That did ruin things a little bit for me. What a central midfielder is
Spain are all about, Tom.
Yeah, I know, but not for me.
Spain got 8 goals in the entire... Tom is old school on numbers. Spain got 8 goals in the whole tournament in 2010 and of course went on to win the World Cup. So they're off to a pretty good start here with 7. I think we've lost Lee, so that's a lot more work for you and for you, Gary and Tom, I'm afraid. Gents, listen, Spain then, I'd say looking pretty ominous again. They've gone joint second favourites behind Brazil alongside England and France to actually win the tournament. One side that people had always kind of touted as having this, real chance of winning a World Cup and looking a major threat was Belgium. Now, they won 1-0 against Canada, but that didn't really tell the whole story. Tom, I'm assuming you saw a sort of pretty strong Canadian performance in that game.
Well, some people did try and make the case for Canada, potentially winning this game, performing well at the very least, and those people were laughed at, were smirked at. But I thought Canada were really impressive, and you wonder what would have happened if Alphonso Davies had put that penalty away. They had a couple of other very strong penalty shouts, I thought, that were dismissed. Belgium getting through by dint of experience, by dint of being able to, grind out a result, and that one moment of quality when they needed it, that lovely flighted pass over the top and Michy Batshuayi running through and keeping his cool. It is possible for teams to grow into tournaments. So there's always a danger, particularly at a World Cup. You spend so long looking forward to them. You're so desperate to kind of draw conclusions on how well all the teams are playing and how good everyone's looking that you can sometimes put too much focus on the opening games and draw too many conclusions. I mean, there's nothing to stop Belgium sort of picking things up in game 2 and game 3 and then, hitting their stride in the knockout rounds. But yeah, from what we saw in that game against Canada, they look some way off being proper contenders.
We've got Lee. Lee's back. Lee, did you see Belgium-Canada, and what did you think of the Canadians?
I did see Belgium-Canada. I thought Canada looked really impressive. Overpowered. Canada knocked the ball around really well, had a game plan, and I thought they looked a really impressive team. I'm not sure whether that was just because Belgium were really poor and old and were struggling with the heat, or just one of them off days for Belgium. But yeah, I was very impressed with Canada.
I know we're all here for the expected goal stats, so I'm going to give you the Canada-Belgium one. Canada with 2.83 and Belgium with just 0.86. So basically, this was kind of like should have been a 3-1 win for Canada. And those numbers from XG Philosophy on Twitter. Thought Belgium may be looking a little bit tired, Gary. We've made a lot about this team being a bit older. They're still hanging on with a lot of the players from the golden generation. What did you make of Belgium?
Yeah, I think in our first podcast, didn't I? said they were sort of my dark horses. Could they have one last hurrah for all the old boys there? I think a big problem for them still is, I know Batshuayi scored, but I mean, Lukaku's out at the moment, and we know what a goal scorer he is. He's done it wherever he's been at club level and international level. I think he's a big miss for them. But yeah, you just wondered about the heat and the age of the team. Did did it take its toll on them? They looked at, there was a period in the first half where they all seemed to be bitching at each other as well. They weren't happy with the performance. They were getting outplayed by Canada. And, there was some sniping going on in their own ranks as well. So I don't think that it looks too well for them going further and deeper into this tournament. Listen, they've got the 1-0 result, which is terrific for them, and they'll probably go through. But I can't see them having the impact I thought they might do at the start of this tournament.
As kind of guys who've played the game at this level yourselves, as fans, as observers, we often talk about the fact that, we can kind of obsess over the stats and the numbers and how many chances they create. But often you just think, if you're in the game yourself and you get the win, even if you don't play well, even if you don't deserve it, it still boosts your confidence. Is that true, do you think, Gary? If you kind of get played off the park but get the 1-0, do you just kind of leave it behind you and think, well, we won? Or do you start to worry about the performance?
You start, I mean, it's great that you get a result, but you will be worried about the performance. They'll know that they're the luckiest team probably in the World Cup at the moment to get 3 points from their opening game. Completely outplayed by the Canada side. You'll go there, you'll be delighted in the dressing room, but in the back of your mind, as a professional, you haven't performed. You've got lucky against a side that was better than you in all aspects, really, in that game yesterday. So that'll be eating away at them. It doesn't cover up all the cracks, the 3 points. Deep down in their deepest, darkest thoughts, they're concerned.
Okay, well, I'll tell you a team that will be very concerned as well. That's Argentina, back on Tuesday, of course. That stunning win for Saudi Arabia, arguably the greatest shock ever in World Cup history. Argentina went ahead, had, I think, 3 goals disallowed for offside, and then Saudi Arabia turning it around in the second half to win 2-1. Tom, do you think Messi and co can still win this tournament? I mean, they've drifted in the odds for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you'd probably think twice about sticking any money on them at present. I guess in terms of historical precedent, Argentina famously lost their opening game at the 1990 World Cup against Cameroon in one of the other great shocks, and still made it to the final and narrowly lost to Germany. Spain, of course, when they won the World Cup in 2010, lost their opening game against Switzerland and came back and won it. So, all is not lost, but it is a tricky group, that one. Mexico and Poland still to come. So theoretically, they've already had what should have been their most winnable game. On another day, they probably would have won that quite comfortably. As you say, they had 3 goals ruled out for offsides. At least one of those offside calls was really, really marginal. One of those where you need the kind of, the new robot replay zoom in before you can actually see which part of the attacking player was offside. But no, they're up against it. And I think having struggled as well to get out of the group at the last World Cup, and then been eliminated in the last 16 by France, I think they'll be worried about history repeating itself. And all of a sudden now that Mexico game becomes must win.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that in just a second. Lee, there was this amazing atmosphere in the stadium. What did you make of that noise, and what's it like as a player? Does that really make a difference when you're on the pitch and you've got that raucous crowd behind you?
I think the atmosphere always makes a huge difference. The hairs on the back of your neck, the adrenaline levels, and for me, it used to be the nerves levels as well. The nerves went up as soon as the noise went up. But yeah, it's incredible when you can play. That's why you play the game, to play in atmospheres like that, and that's why everybody wants to get to a World Cup, because that's what it brings.
Okay, Gary, you tipped France before the tournament and had Mbappe as top goal scorer. You must be feeling pretty good about that after their really impressive 4-1 win over Australia, and just how imperious Mbappe was looking in that game, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, it is my tip. I think France, even though they've got some big names missing from that squad, from that team, they look very good. They went 1-0 down, which I'm guessing was a bit of a shock to the system, but responded in a great way. They look classy, and they look full of goals. They've got one of the leading strikers in the world in the team, if not the best striker in the world. So yeah, I'm sure their odds have come in after that result, because they've gone in there with the tag of being one of the favourites, and they've lived up to the billing.
Yeah, I think you called it. You said they can score goals, and you look at that
Yeah.
attack. I mean, they do. If you've got guys like Dembele on form, Griezmann, Giroud with a couple of goals, and Mbappe, I mean, it's a pretty scary front line. Tom, you of course are a resident French football expert. What did you make of the performance just in general, and also Giroud, becoming the joint all-time leading goal scorer for Les Bleus, and actually doing it in fewer games than Thierry Henry, who he's leveled up with.
Yeah, I mean, Giroud's story in the France team is remarkable in that he's been considered this sort of default option for almost his entire France career. Seems perpetually on the brink of losing his place in the team, and yet he's the guy who Didier Deschamps keeps going back to. And of course, he went through the entirety of the 2018 World Cup without scoring a goal, which he got a little bit of stick over, despite the fact he ended the tournament with a winner's medal around his neck. But I mean, he has kind of stuck at it and kept working away, and obviously fell out of favour at Chelsea, made the move to Milan, lots of competition for place, for that striker role at Milan, but has managed to get himself into the team, scored a lot of goals over the first part of the season, and I think there's an awful lot of respect and admiration for him in France. For a player who is, who never looked destined to become a superstar, but who was, by dint of sort of hard work and grafting and honing his craft has ended up, equaling Thierry Henry's scoring record, and who will in all probability go on and break that record, perhaps even during this tournament. And in terms of France's overall performance, yeah, I mean, the most impressive thing is their attacking firepower. I mean, Mbappe just had the Australian right back on toast, like right from the start of the game. Looked like he could beat him whenever he wanted to, and he did that quite frequently. I thought Antoine Griezmann's role was interesting, sort of playing almost as a midfielder rather than a kind of number 10, which is a bit of an evolution for him. Giroud obviously gets his 2 goals. I think the concern would be that the defensive side of things. I mean, France are playing with a new look centre back pairing, a new look central midfield pairing. Lucas Hernandez, one of the stalwarts of the 2018 side, limps off after 9 minutes of play, and Australia were getting a bit of joy in the early stages. Obviously, scored that goal to go ahead, and I think that's something that Deschamps will be worried about. But when you've got that much talent at the other end of the pitch, you can get away with shipping the odd goal, because when Mbappe and Giroud are banging them in, you're probably going to back yourself to outscore most of the teams you come up against.
Yep. So Giroud doing his bit there with 2 goals. He's on 51. You have to say as well, Mbappe is probably going to end up as France's all-time goal scorer. He's already on 29 after 60 games. He's just 23 years old. So Giroud might have his time in the limelight for a little while, but I think Mbappe is going to take that record eventually. Let's move on to the games that are coming up this weekend. We've got 3 big games all coming up at 7 p.m. UK time across the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The first of those is England against the USA. Gary, I'm going to throw this to you. England actually pretty strong favourites for this, what you'd call in the odds about a 63% chance. So they're 1.59 on SBK. How confident are you feeling that England can get the win here?
Yeah, I'm reasonably confident. As I say, I thought the USA were impressive in that first half against Wales. I thought they looked dynamic. Thought they looked full of energy. Thought they played at a good tempo and really put Wales on the back foot. Now, was that because the Wales team was so poor in that first half? Hard to really tell. But yeah, I mean, if they can replicate that in the game against England, they can make it uncomfortable for England. I think the pleasing news out of the England camp was that I think Harry Kane went for a scan, and he's been given the all clear to play in this game, which is great. Because I thought his movement and his link-up play against Iran was great, albeit against the opposition that we played against. But yeah, we rightly so were favourites. We've hit the ground running. We've had a superb victory in the first game. Confidence will be high. We've shown that we've got strength coming off the bench as well. So we'll go into that game full of beans and fully expect to get the points and secure our place in the next round, really.
Lee, how are you feeling about it? Are you feeling confident?
I feel very confident at the moment, the way we played in the first game. I think the way the lads played, the way they passed the ball around, they look hungry, they look fit, they look sharp. And add to that, we've got loads of attacking players with lots and lots of ability that can score your goals and change games. I feel very confident at the moment.
Gary, throwing it back to you, I'm assuming you wouldn't change anything in the England lineup from the first game.
No, I think we've got to secure the points. I think he'll go with the same. Served as well in the first game, didn't it? If we get the points in that, then we can, possibly look at giving other people a try. Maybe giving Harry Kane a rest if he has got a niggle with his ankle. It opens up a lot of options, which everybody wants after 2 games. That you can take your foot off the pedal a little bit. But yeah, we've got to make sure that we go out, we don't relax, we go for the jugular sort of thing and put the USA under some pressure. I think if we do that, I think they'll possibly buckle, and we could end up comfortable winners again. But if we can't get too far ahead of ourselves and think, oh yeah, that was a great first game, and this is going to be a doddle. It's serious business. We've seen in World Cups, and I've actually played, myself and Sharpe, you played against the USA team over there and got beat. So they're no mugs. Like most teams across the world, they're getting better year by year, tournament by tournament. So we've got to be on our mettle, I guess.
Okay, we now have 2 Lee Sharpes on the call. That's how keen he is. Tom, looking ahead to Argentina against Mexico, this is surely a must-win game as well for Argentina, and it's a huge game for Messi, you'd have to say, and not to make it all about him, but this is probably his last chance to win a World Cup.
Yeah, it's hard not to make it all about Messi when you're talking about Argentina, because I guess those of us who've had so much fun watching him over the last 15 years or whatever it is, you do wonder whether we're ever going to see him deliver at a World Cup. And I was lucky enough to be at the World Cup in 2014 when Argentina reached the final, and seeing Messi come so close to the ultimate prize and just fall short, you did feel for him, and particularly as we know that chances are this will be his last World Cup, this will be his last chance to win the one big trophy that's always eluded him, and going into the tournament, Argentina were in such exceptional form, that incredible unbeaten run. They'd won the Copa America, they'd beaten Italy in the Finalissima at Wembley over the summer, and you couldn't really have asked for a better run of form going into the tournament, and then they get their pants pulled down by Saudi Arabia in the first match. I wouldn't have thought that they'll change too much. They managed to create lots of chances against the Saudis, particularly in the first half, and if anything, it was a bit of luck on the offside calls and perhaps a little bit of composure, a little bit of quality that was lacking. But Mexico will be really tricky opponents, and having drawn their opening game against Poland, they need to pick up points themselves. They are really experienced team, Mexico, one of the most experienced teams in the competition, a team that looks after the ball really well, a very hard-working team, not a huge sort of attacking threat, although Raul Jimenez came off the bench late on in that game against Poland, so perhaps he'll be in line for a start. But yeah, huge pressure on Argentina, as it was, at the last World Cup, and on that occasion they managed to get out of the group. That's obviously what they've got to try and do again this time.
Yeah, Argentina actually big favourites for this. I was a little surprised. Basically the same odds as England to win this game, 1.59. Same odds as England are against the US. We've also then got on Sunday, a huge one, Spain against Germany. This is basically a must-win for Germany now, you'd say, because Japan are playing Costa Rica, and you think that Japan will win that pretty well. What do you make of Germany's chances against this frightening-looking Spain side, Gary?
Well, you've got to go on the first 2 games that we've seen, haven't you? Make Spain favourites. If they'd got the result against Japan, you maybe calling it a little bit differently. But they're on the back of that kind of embarrassing result for themselves. They've got to pick themselves up and play against a team that's absolutely buzzing and full of confidence. So the onus is on Germany to go and win the game. If they defend like they did the other day, you can see that Spanish team unpicking them, and I would fear for them. You're going to make Spain favourites for that game. In tournament football over the years, you wouldn't do that. Germany would always be the team you'd probably back to get through a tie like that. But yeah, Spain are favourites. They're playing, what we saw in that first game. They played some great football, albeit against a side that was poor. But it's a mouth-watering clash, isn't it, early in the tournament, and one I hope that will be entertaining. We'll see, and I'm sure we will see plenty of goals.
Yeah, when it comes to the odds, Gary's right. Spain are the favourites. They're at 2.4, so it's kind of a 40-ish% chance of victory. Germany at 3, and the draw is at 3.6. So not quite as foregone a conclusion as it might seem from the thrashing that Spain gave to Costa Rica. But we'll see. Germany went out, of course, in the group stages for the first time ever in the last World Cup. Could be happening again this time around after, of course, winning it, as Tom mentioned, back in 2014 against Argentina. Gary, listen, we've lost Lee, but this is going to be familiar territory for you. You're going to have to carry Lee Sharpe. So I'm going to throw to you for looking sharp, and I'm going to ask you for a player who has impressed you in the last round of games since we last spoke.
Is it Gavi?
It's an easy choice, huh?
Yeah, we've got our own kid in Jude Bellingham who's made people sit up and take notice in this World Cup. I think he's done exactly the same. Huge expectations on the kid. And he delivered. I think he actually meant to hit that ball like he did into the corner of the net. Not just that, impressive skills, maturity for a lad of 18 to go and be a big player on that world stage for his country. Speaks volumes. Are we seeing somebody who can replicate Messi? Yes, and it's big shoes to fill. But what a start! What a start, making an impact in your first World Cup at that age. Yeah, hats off to the lad.
I'm sure Lee would have said the same thing and said it just as eloquently.
Young Lee Sharpe.
Let's move on to take on Pally. This is Gary against Tom. We're gonna put forward 3 bets. Tell us if you're taking it or not. First one is, I actually mentioned the odds earlier, but England against the USA. Who's going to win that one? Gary, you first.
I'm English. England. Yeah, I don't see it being upset.
Say that. Fine. Tom, as a Welshman, where's this going to go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not English, but I'm also going to say England, and not only because Wales will probably need a favour from England in this game, but yeah, England so impressive against Iran, and although the US gave Wales a tough game, I just think England got too much quality.
Okay, Argentina against Mexico. The bet is both teams to score. Tom, would you take that bet or not?
I'm going to say no. As I mentioned before, not entirely sure who's going to score Mexico's goals. Created a few chances in that 0-0 against Poland. Herbing Lozano was the only real bright spark, but I'm going to back Argentina to keep them at bay, and I can see Argentina finding the net, but I think it might be a bit tricky for Mexico.
Well, I'll change. I'm going for both teams to score. I think they'll be a little bit nervous with Argentina, and I think they might very well win the game, but I think it could be a 2-1.
Okay. And Belgium against Morocco is our final bet. This is over 2.5 goals, so 3 goals or more across both sides. Tom, would you take that bet?
I'm going to say no again. Belgium probably still going to be without Romelu Lukaku, and we saw how much they struggled to create chances in his absence in that game against Canada. Morocco, one of the most solid teams in the tournament, very solid in that opening 0-0 draw against Croatia. I think Croatia only had a couple of shots on target, so I think we can probably expect more of the same. So I'm thinking this is probably going to be quite low scoring.
Over 2.5. Yeah, I'm going to go no. Yeah, I'm going to go no. Yeah, Belgium have got issues, I think.
Okay. Well, they didn't create too much against Canada, has to be said. Right, listen, Lee is back. Lee, Gary's done your section, so we're just going to ease into the quiz. So we're doing who's the sharpest pal? 5 questions, and it's funny that we've got you now, Lee. We've actually already mentioned this game. So this is supposed to be an England against USA special. 5 questions on. The time Gary and Lee played together for England against the USA. So I'm going to ask Lee first because I actually think Gary knows, but I think Lee might not. What year did you and Gary play against the US together for England?
1993.
Gary, what's your answer?
93.
It's the correct answer. I was wrong. I'm sorry.
That one to me.
Absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, 93.
Okay.
Remember
So that's
it.
a point each.
Remember it.
Now, what was the final score? That one's for you, Gary.
2-0 USA. Or was it 2-1? Oh, great. Was
2?
it 2-1? Oh, no, 2-0.
Lee, what was the final score?
I think it was 1-0 America. I'm saying 1-0.
It was actually 2-0. Gary's right.
Yay! I don't know what I'm cheering for. I've had nightmares about that still.
It's the most pleasure you've ever got out of that game. Okay, now do you remember where this game was played?
I think we played one in the Silverdome, and that was Detroit. But is it something like the Fox Stadium?
It's pretty close. It's pretty close.
Do I get a point if I'm closer than Sharpe? Who has got no answer, by the way.
Yeah. So you've won. If you just made any noise, you would have won that one. Lee, can you hear us? Can we get your guess for this one? Do you remember where the match was played? I'm afraid by default, Gary's taking the point. It was the Foxborough Stadium.
Foxborough.
And so there's
got to get a point.
There's Borough. There's a
when he comes back on,
there's a Pallister nod there with Borough.
Unless he's heard me, and he's heard you.
So the fourth question is: do you remember who scored for the US?
Oh God, it was the guy who looked like Cat Weasel. Played in Italy, and I'm trying to think. There was another young guy who scored. Oh God, what was his name? The centre half played the guitar
with big hair.
Big hair. Oh Lord, what was his name again?
I mean, you're currently beating Lee in this round as well, just by sort of knowing who.
Yeah. Tom will get this though. He'll know the answer to this.
I'm not sure. He'll know who the guy is from your clues.
He won't know the other scorer.
He won't know.
Won't know the other scorer, but you know what I'm talking about. You know what we're talking about, Tom, don't you?
I think so. Yeah, I think the Cat Weasel reference is a bit of a clue.
Yeah. Does it begin with D? Is it gonna have a clue?
Okay, I'm not really being strict enough on the time here. So, his first name begins with an A. I'll give you that clue.
His surname or
his first name?
First name.
Lee, while we've got you, because I'm quite nervous about you disappearing again, did you have an answer for where the stadium was that this defeat took place?
I thought. Can you hear me? I thought it was Washington. I can't remember the name of the stadium now.
I'm afraid that's not right. And now we're talking about who scored for the US. Do you remember who scored?
No idea.
Okay, that's very honest of you.
John Hart.
Alexi Lalas was the name that you were reaching for, Gary.
Alexi Lalas.
And Thomas Dooley.
Man, played in Italy.
Thomas Dooley got the other goal. All right, quickly for the fifth one. Les Ferdinand.
Do I get a point for the Fox Stadium?
You get a point for that. I'll give you a point for that, definitely. 3-1.
That's all right.
Les Ferdinand was subbed off in the 34th minute. Do you know who came on for him?
Ian Wright.
Lee has got that one. Ian Wright.
No way.
3-2. It's not enough to win it, but goal difference could count when we get to the end of this. All right. Well, it's another win for Gary, but a sort of late consolation goal for you, Lee. Listen, guys, that's all we have time for, I'm afraid. But thanks so much for joining. To all you viewers at home and listeners, please give us a like and subscribe wherever you're watching, whichever platform you're on. We'll be back again next week on Monday, looking back on the weekend's action. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to Gary, Lee, and Tom, and we'll see you next time.